Med school debt is crippling, so they say. And many premeds who would become fantastic doctors are now saying no because they fear they cannot pay off their debt. Are they right, or is this being overblown by the media? And over the last 2 weeks, I worked close to 100 hours in the hospital. I was paid $2,447.12. Now, imagine that every month, because I had the average $270,000 in medical school loans, I had to pay $2,435 in debt repayments. That means every month, one paycheck goes to loans and the other paycheck goes to everything else: rent, groceries, and the rest of life. Today, we'll talk about how bad medical school debt really is, how crippling it can feel day to day, why most doctors are terrible financially, and ultimately why I believe the fear of debt should not turn you away from becoming a doctor. 1. How bad is medical school debt really? 73% of doctors have educational debt. And on average, these graduates have a combined $264,519 between med school and undergrad loans. That number paradoxically feels huge. $264,000? I take home $50,000 a year as a resident. But it also feels comparatively small because doctors make $300,000 a year, right? That debt should be erased in a couple of years maximum. But of course, you must remember that these loans have interest. And a physician with $200,000 in federal loans at 8%, well, that doctor can expect to nearly pay double that, $350,000, after all the interest over the years have accrued. More worrisome is that debt is different amongst different demographics. Often from low-income communities where we need more doctor representation, they are seeing a higher proportions of students in debt, and for each of those students, their average median loan burden is higher. This creates a terrible situation. Premeds who have to worry about getting into medical school in the first place now have to worry about, if they get in, will they be able to make a living? And I don't know about you, but as an 18-year-old freshman, I was not prepared to handle these types of questions. Now, throw in the toxic culture of unpaid pre-med internships, throw in that rising cost of attendance, throw in those larger tuition bills at private med schools, and you really have enough ingredients to incite panic. Right now, no matter how large they are, they're just numbers. They don't really mean anything. How will $200,000 of debt affect your day-to-day life? How likely are you able to pay off those loans? Next, I'll show you 3 different doctors and what their life each looks like with $270,000 in debt. We'll see how long it takes for each of them to pay it all off. Now, before that, don't forget that finances have nothing to do with how competitive you are for medical school. To get in, you'll need to know exactly what a strong pre-med looks like. We have 8 full AMCAS applications that earned acceptances to the best programs in the country. My own personal application that got into UCLA is featured in our database. Over 13,500 pre-meds are part of our community. To join now, click the application database link in the description box below. 2. What does debt look like, feel like? Physician salaries vary widely between different specialties, different geographies, privates versus academic practices. But today, we'll take a look at 3 representative doctors. Sam, who's a pediatrician in California, a high cost of living state. Mike, that's me, an anesthesiologist who makes a specialist salary living in New York City, also a high cost of living area. And Ben, a urologist in Illinois, a specialist who lives in a low cost of living state. First, we have to understand what healthy finances look like. Let's say, for easy math, you take home $100. Personal Finance New York Times bestselling author Ramit Sethi recommends that you break that $100 down into something like this. 1. Fixed costs. These are your essential, non-negotiable expenses. Here, think your rent or your mortgage, your utilities, your groceries, your transportation, your debt payments, your subscriptions, things like that. That should take up 50 to 60% of your income. 2. Investments. These are your post-tax retirement savings and your stocks and bonds and portfolio. That should take up about 10% of your income. 3. Your savings. That should be your emergency fund, your vacations, your holiday gifts. It should be about 5 to 10% of your income. And 4, your guilt-free spending. This is your fun money, your restaurants, your Broadway shows, your movie tickets, and concert venues. That should be a healthy 20 to 35%. So let's assume that after 35% in taxes, this is what our fantastic doctors take home. Sam, the pediatrician, takes home $160,000 per year. Mike, the anesthesiologist in New York City, takes home $286,000 a year. And Ben, the private practice urologist in the Midwest, he takes home $360,750 per year. So if we follow that Ramit model, this is what life might look like for each of our doctors. Yes, there are a ton of assumptions here and your mileage may vary. I'd recommend that you don't worry about the dollar here or the dollar there that I missed. Instead, I want you to focus on the three major things here. 1, the net monthly income. You can see that different physicians take home different amounts each month, and that extra money can really make a meaningful difference. 2, rent. Where and how you live dictates your rent. These are your average 1-bedroom places in each respective state: California, New York City, and Illinois. And 3, debt payments. Whatever money you have left over, differences in rent and differences in how much you take home, that leads to a big difference in how much you can afford to pay in debt payments every single month. Whatever was left over to fit that 50% fixed cost, I calculated and input into this model. Let's start with Sam, the pediatrician. She will make 269 total payments in her lifetime. She'll pay a total of $572,579 and $308,060, which is more than the actual loan itself. All of that is in interest alone. It will take her 23 years, and every single month she'll have no idea where her money is going. Mike, the anesthesiologist, will make 53 total payments. He'll pay a total of $315,322, with $50,803 in interest. And notice that because Sam can't afford to pay more each month, she has to pay the loan off over a longer period of time. So much so that Sam pays just as much in interest alone than I will pay for the entire loan plus interest. And instead of 23 years, it'll take me 5 years. Ben, the urologist, will make 29 payments. He pays a total of $291,703 and only pays $27,184 in interest. Again, Sam is paying more in interest than Ben is paying altogether, and overall, it only takes Ben 3 years to get out of his loan. So now you can really appreciate just how tight it is for primary care providers living in high cost of living states. Now, if you wanted to be a family medicine doctor in New York City, don't worry. I promise you, you won't need to pay loans until you retire. We'll get to how exactly in the next section. But you can also see how other doctors, specialists, private practice doctors, doctors living in low cost of living states, they can get out of debt relatively quickly, especially if they pay aggressively. That's all certainly within a decade while keeping the rest of their finances healthy. They're still investing, they're still saving, they're still going on vacation. They're not buying 2 boats and a multi-million-dollar mansion, but they're still going to restaurants, still going to sporting events, still going to concerts, and living their life. 3, why are so many smart doctors financially clueless? There's a classic stereotype of doctors being financially clueless. Our worst nightmare is being that 80-year-old physician who is still working overnight call shifts just to pay off the 3 ex-wives, the 2 boats, the 1 30-year mortgage, and the partridge in a pear tree. Logically, you'd think that doctors who are at the top of their class, masters of test taking over the last decade, they would also be able to understand personal finance. Logically, that's right, but money isn't logical. It's actually highly emotional. To understand, let's go back in time. 10 years ago, I turned 18 and I started my freshman journey at UCLA. I graduated at 22 and started at UCLA Medical School that same year. I graduated at 26 and now I'm in a 4-year anesthesiology residency in New York City. I didn't make my first dollar until I turned 27, and that first paycheck was about $2,400. I'll graduate when I turn 30, and that first paycheck will be 10 times as much as my first residency paycheck at $24,000. And so if you take a step back, over the last 12 years, I made either no money or just enough money to pay for groceries and rent. For nearly half of my life, up until I was 30, I made less money than 75% of the entire country. Then, on my 30th birthday, suddenly everything changes, and I make $24,000 every 2 weeks That's more money than 95% of America. And not for 1 second in the last 12 years are doctors ever taught how to handle their money. They're too busy learning medicine. And so during some of our most formative years, from 18 to 30, we develop a very interesting money psychology. We think the number in our checking account is all that we have. There's not much left over to invest or save. And so when the number in the checking account suddenly becomes 10 times as large, we deserve something nice, right? How nice? We aren't really sure, because after a dozen years of education, we've never understood how to handle our personal finances or manage a budget. So instead of running our numbers, we look around on social media and look at what our other doctor colleagues are doing. We buy that $1.2 million house with a $15,000 a month mortgage because the real estate person says that we can definitely afford that. We upgrade our Honda Accord to that brand new BMW with a $900 a month car payment, because when you're making $24,000 every 2 weeks, what's $900 a month? When we're at the restaurant, we finally buy everyone an extra round of drinks, and we buy those extra appetizers because for the last 12 years, we couldn't do that. We literally couldn't afford it. And it's especially bad in modern society when Instagram and TikTok clutter our phones with our tech friends or our friends in finance, the people living remotely and seem to be on vacation every single week. For example, my partner's sister is a healthcare consultant. She graduated at 22, and right out of college, she started making $150,000 a year. She's remote half the week, and that level of money plus job flexibility at such an early age, that leads to an entirely different understanding and psychology of money. We doctors don't make anything close to that until we're 30 or 32 years old, nearly a decade later. But doctors can't control this. This is the education system. The education system is the system we have to all go through. But what we can control is learning how to transition smoothly from nearly nothing to making more money than we could ever imagine. I'll go over how to do that in the next section. For now, let's go back to Sam. Originally, she could only afford $2,000 per month in debt payments. Let's say she tightens up her finances and figures out how to double it to $4,000 per month. That means that, she'll have to commute from a bit farther out so that her rent goes down from $2,400 to $1,735. She'll have to drive a used car, and that will lower her car payment substantially. She'll be tighter with her groceries, going to $350 a month from $500. New clothing might have to wait, and she'll tighten up her subscriptions so that she only has Amazon and Spotify. And instead of paying for $40 per month for LA Fitness, she'll start that running habit she always wanted to. The difference is drastic. Instead of 269 total payments, she'll make only 88. Instead of paying $572,579, she pays $351,247. And instead of 23 years, she pays off those loans in 8. 4. Why med school debt isn't that bad, actually. If you want to be a doctor, you should 100% consider the finances. There's a stereotype that if you want to make money, you should go into tech and finance. But I think this does underplay just how wealthy physicians can be, especially if they truly understand personal finances. Even Sam, who starts off buried under a mountain of debt and has to live like a resident for another 8 years. She's now 38 years old, debt-free, and takes home $14,000 a month. And even as she was aggressively paying off her debt, she was still investing $1,333 per month. Over those 8 years, that has become $171,000. And now instead of making $4,000 a month in debt payments, she splits that into 2. Half of it goes to a nicer apartment. Imagine a $3,200 apartment instead of a $1,700 one. And she still has extra money for her guilty pleasures. Maybe every month she goes to a $300 Michelin dinner and buys $200 concert tickets. And that other $2,000 a month goes to her investments. And 25 years later, when she's ready to retire, she's tucked away $3.7 million. We can use the 4% rule, which essentially says how much you can take out of your portfolio safely every single year. And her investments have earned her $150,000 per year, on top of Social Security, on top of a possible pension. And that portfolio continues to grow year over year. She's set up for a fantastic retirement. That's an upper middle class living, even as a primary care provider in a high cost of living state like California. And remember, this ignores a couple of key assumptions. 1, Sam doesn't get a single raise after 35 years of being a pediatrician? Yeah, unlikely. And 2, Sam doesn't combine finances with another person. This means that not only do you split many of your fixed expenses like rent and utilities, you also increase the larger household income. That puts Sam in an even better financial position. I won't do the math for someone like Ben, the urologist in Illinois, but you can imagine just how wealthy some doctors can be. Pre-meds, medical school debt is no joke. But I believe it is our personal responsibility to learn personal finance. No one is coming to save us. In fact, many people, mortgage brokers, boat sellers, life insurance salesmen, they are looking to take advantage of us and our high salaries. Remember that high salaries, like physicians earn, can solve a lot of financial problems. And when you have a basic understanding of what healthy numbers look like, you can make the best decisions for you. The math itself isn't so complicated. It's the emotions behind getting started on your financial journey that's difficult. It's the psychology transitioning from life as a resident to life as an attending with a 10 times paycheck. And ultimately, I believe that a career isn't entirely about money. I believe, and I have met so many of you pre-meds that would be fantastic doctors. I think you would love the job, and I would trust you to care for my loved ones. And today, I believe there are few careers that balance life satisfaction, respect, and competitive pay. If you liked this video, you'll love this one here, where I talk about the 10 brutal truths I wish I knew when I was a freshman starting at UCLA 10 years ago. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.